Okay, welcome to a class on weather and climate vocabulary. As always, there will be some repetition of some old vocabulary like teeth chattering, shivering, because I know that it's repetition that helps you learn new words, yeah? And it's even better if you start saying them. Yeah, I remember as a teacher when I was working in schools years and years ago, the only way I could remember hundreds of names, and believe me, I have a terrible memory, but it was by using their names when I looked them in the eye. That would always help, and doing it again and again and again. So if you're freezing cold, guys, your teeth chatter, you shiver. Yeah, that's that shaking that you do when the body shakes from cold. And also, you do often get goosebumps. Now, I haven't got goosebumps, I've just got a normal arm. But when you've got goosebumps, the skin goes all bumpy, very often because you're cold, and the little hair follicles stand up like that to create some kind of warm layer of air around the body. So when your hair all stands on end, yeah, we say that as well. But when you get goosebumps, it's usually because you're cold, maybe because you're frightened. Yeah, it can be an emotional response, this get goosebumps. You know, maybe because you hear some amazing music as well. Sometimes that can give you goosebumps, like send a shiver up your spine. But get goosebumps, it's very often when you're cold. Yeah, if you're shivering and these teeth are chattering, you've probably got goosebumps as well, because all the hairs are standing up to try and warm the body up. Okay, if you say the pipes have frozen up, this means the pipes have frozen, but we very often say up as well. Water pipes freeze in the winter. Yeah, when it goes below 0 degrees, the pipes freeze up. And that's why years ago, people used to leave their taps running constantly all the way through winter on a little dribble, just to make sure that the pipes didn't freeze up. And I remember this because my dad was a plumber, and he would advise people to do this. And I suppose that this was in the day when water was not so expensive, because nowadays I'm not sure I have the money to do that. Okay, 25 degrees below 0. This is how you talk about temperature, yeah? You can say plus 30 degrees or minus 25 as well. You can, plus 30, minus 25. But we often say 25 degrees below 0. This is obviously freezing cold, yeah? You need to wrap up warm. And that's a good phrasal verb, wrap up warm. You need to wrap up warm if it's 25 degrees below 0. Yeah? You don't want to go outside without your hat and gloves and scarf on, because there's probably a fierce blizzard outside, or a howling blizzard. Howling works very well with wind as well. You can say a howling wind, and you can say the wind was howling. And wolves howl, dogs howl. It means like, it means that noise. But we do say the wind was howling through the trees, because when it's really windy, you hear that kind of it's that noise that the wind makes as it comes through the trees. And you could certainly say a howling blizzard, because a blizzard is a really fierce snowstorm. So there's loads and loads and loads of snow falling, and usually a blizzard is accompanied by howling winds, and that's why you can certainly say a howling blizzard. Now look at some of the verbs we've got here and some of the adjectives. You can have deep snow, heavy snow, light snow, and I think all of those are clear. Powdery snow, snow that is like powder. Remember this word, yeah? Washing powder. That's that stuff you put in the washing machine to make sure your clothes get clean. So powder, it's the word for any material, very often a chemical, very often a crystal, that is in powdered form. So it's in tiny, small, little fine grains of powder. But I mean, I make coffee every morning, and I use proper coffee with real coffee beans. And so I have to crush up those coffee beans in order that they become powdery. Yeah, and then when they're powdery, I can make a nice cup of coffee from them. Okay, and you can also talk about wet snow, but I want to make it clear that wet snow is sleet. And sleet is usually used as a noun rather than a verb, but you can say it is sleeting. But wet snow is sleet, okay? Make that clear. Now, snow firstly settles, hopefully. When you're a child, you're praying for snow to settle, especially if you're a child in the UK, because we never get snow, and all kids love snow. And so you pray that the snow will settle, the school will close down, and you'll get your sledge and take them down to the cliffs where you get a nice sledging run. So we all want the snow to settle. When the snow melts, it's very sad if you're a child, because it melts, it disappears, it turns into water. Melt is go from solid to liquid. Yeah, I mean, that's really what melt means technically, because you can melt metal if you get it hot enough, and it will melt into liquid metal. And so melt is a chemical process, but we do use it for snow all the time, of course, and anything that changes from a solid to a liquid melts, okay? Now, snow falls, of course, the snow is falling. Snow piles up on the ground. Please remember this phrasal verb. Work can pile up, certainly. Anything can pile up, guys. Work can pile up on your desk. Letters can pile up on your desk. Documents can pile up on your desk. Snow can pile up outside, and even cars can pile up when there's an accident. Yeah, I think we did this in driving. We said that when there's a 6-car pile up, that means 6 cars have piled up against, they've piled into the lorry or van that's fallen over, or it has broken down, and that's a pile up, a multiple car pile up. So a lot of meanings with that word. Covers as well. Snow covered the ground, and we do often talk about a thick blanket of snow covered the ground, or a thin blanket of snow covered the ground. Blanket is usually what you use at night in bed to stay warm. Yeah, but certainly a blanket of snow, and even a blanket of frost. I don't see anything wrong with that either. So bear that in mind for in a few seconds. A blanket of clouds as well, I think you could say. Okay, you can say the snow was turning to sleet. Turning to or turning into, I've heard both of them, but the snow was turning to sleet, the rain was turning to sleet. It means becoming sleet, and sleet is halfway between snow and rain. It's wet snow. So if you say ice had formed on the pond, it's clear that a thin layer of ice, and I think a blanket of ice is okay as well, but a thin layer of ice had formed on the top of the pond. And of course this happens in winter when it's below 0. You can also say the sun came out and thawed the ice. So to thaw is the same as to melt sometimes, but be careful, because this is an ergative verb, and what that means is you can say the sun thawed the ice, or you can say the ice thawed, and you don't have to put it into passive. You don't say the ice was thawed, you just say the sun thawed the ice, or the ice thawed, and when the ice thawed, it melted. But here, yeah, the sun thawed the ice, the sun melted the ice. So thaw and melt actually are both ergative verbs. The sun melted the ice melted. Anyway, I thought I'd better mention that because that's important for how you use these words. Do remember that we say, I took the frozen turkey out of the freezer to let it thaw out, or just to let it thaw, but to let it thaw out is very common as well. So lots to remember with thaw, and yes, we have seen it before. Okay, the sun came out. Difficult phrasal verbs for the sun, yeah? Firstly, the sun comes up in the morning when it rises, and goes down in the evening when it sets, and you can say the sun rises, the sun sets as well, but I think most people know those. But we say come